So, welcome everybody. I'm so excited to be here today with Dr. Justin Kennedy from the NPN Hub. So, welcome, Justin.
Thank you, Barbara. It's really exciting to be on your channel. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's great. So, just to get the listeners, the audience, a little bit
Hmm.
more familiar with you, what I'd like to do is read your bio. Justin is a TED speaker, which is amazing, and a neuroplastician and a coach. As a professor, he serves as a PhD coach and supervisor at several academic institutions. He's a scholar in behavioral neuroscience and the co-founder of ION, the Institute of Organizational Neuroscience, which encourages academic research. He focuses on the fields of applied neuroplasticity and coaching towards standardizing the practices of neuroplasticians and helps coaches and consultants to register for their ideal PhD, as it was started as an initiative for professionals to discuss applied neuroscience in a managed space called the NPN Hub. So, welcome, and I'm so excited to tell everybody more about it and learn about how you use neuroplasticity in, I really want to say help the world to be a better place. Let's just
Hmm.
dive in because we have a short time.
I want to go down the avenue that is going to be interesting here. So I can tell you my personal story. I can tell you professionally what I've been up to. I can do both. I can do neither. Whatever you want, Barbara.
Well, I think what I want to talk about is like, this is about inspiring people and helping them to get unstuck.
Hmm.
So if you decide what story you think might be
Hmm.
most powerful people to share with them how you were stuck and how you got yourself unstuck. So the
Hmm.
floor is
Yeah,
yours.
sure. Thank you, Barbara. The story into understanding neuroplasticity really started the wrong way around, and I was in a motor accident, traveling down after I was living in Cape Town, South Africa, and I was traveling back from work after just buying a helmet for a motorbike that I'd bought a couple of days before. So I just put the helmet on, and out of nowhere, a driver came and swiped me, and flew into the sky and landed on my head, which ended in a serious subdural hemorrhage or a bleeding on the brain, which led into a coma. And that was the beginning of my neuroplasticity, which wasn't a very good beginning. But out of the recovery of the coma, I learned to walk and talk and think again. It was pretty exhausting period, and I was studying to be a psychologist at the time, Barbara. And I realized, there's a misconnect between the machinery of the brain and the machinery of the mind. Because I was having these ideas, I wanted to speak or I wanted to walk or whatever, and I just couldn't get it going. So the brain damage caused me to think, well, what can one do about this? And it's basically neuroplasticity in learning how to rewire networks and learning how to reboot the brain, which is the title of my book from a while back called Brain Reboot, which takes the reader on a journey through my experience and how they can use tools that facilitate remapping their brain so they get out of states of distress or dis-ease or even disease so that they can find their optimal state of thriving and well-being and performance and everything else in between. So that's the quick story of how I got into this area, Barbara.
Wow, that's amazing that you're alive, no?
It is a bit of a thing, but it is. The funny thing, Barbara, is that, well, not so funny, but recently, I've been free of any symptoms of this coma for decades, and now that I'm getting clearly a bit long in the tooth and a bit older, um, out of nowhere, I started having these epileptic seizures.
Really?
So clearly my brain damage is, starting to corrode or rust or plaque. And as a result, obviously the neuroplasticity that I built is, having to compete with the decaying brain as it gets older. So I've had to go on to medicine and I've had to be more particular around looking after myself.
Mm.
So, I've only had a couple of epileptic seizures, but half a dozen is more than enough because it's pretty freaky for people around you.
Oh
And it's so interesting how it works, Bobby, because sometimes it's a full grand mal seizure, which is when you kind of break dancing, and the other times it's just like it's a bit of a hallucination. And the other week I was down in my office and I had this great idea, and I got up and I went to my wife and I said, "Look, I've found the model that's going to solve everything." And she said, "Okay, how are you feeling?" I said, "I feel great, but I finally worked it all out. Let me draw the map for you." And I started drawing, I don't know, like just a flower or a smiling face. And as I was drawing, I realized, I'm actually having a mild seizure here. My brain is just looping out. And,
yeah,
it is pretty easy to notice that when you're coming out of it. But a lot of people don't realize that it happens to all of us. We get lost in a cognitive bias or a heuristic that we believe is true. And before we know it, we're defending the model of everything that doesn't even mean anything. And the work that I do is helping people build that resilience so that they can see the wood for the trees. And in my coaching practice as an executive health coach, I really focus on getting people obviously to take a breath, but also to be able to notice what they don't usually notice. So they can be more intelligent about the choices they are making to ensure that they can be thriving rather than just surviving.
that's awesome. It's, and I appreciate you sharing so openly about what's going on with you. Most people don't know this about me. I also had seizures when I was 16 as a result of
Mm,
allergic reaction, and I was fully conscious of it, and I remember it, of course, like it was yesterday. Like I was observing myself and the capabilities that our brain has. And I mean, now we know so much more, and you and I both work in the world of neuroscience and neuroplasticity. It's just amazing. And if you take spirituality and physical and emotionality and all that into consideration, what we're really capable of when we decide what our reality is just beyond, I think sometimes imaginable. So it's
yeah, I
awesome.
mean, what was the cause of your seizures, Bobby? Did they give you any indication?
They say it was allergic reaction to a medication. I was having surgery at the time, and they were giving
Mm,
a medication that later on, was clear that one of the potential side effects was seizures, and I had seizures.
mm.
So,
Well, I definitely think it was an allergic reaction because, as I know you, you are allergic to bullshit. So I'm sure that was what was causing it.
yeah, it was what it was. I mean, we don't have to go down that trail. So let's talk about, is there something specific that you do with your clients or with yourself that when you're stuck, you're like, well, this is my go-to, or these are my one, two, three things that I know will help me to get unstuck, and by default uh, will support me in changing the neuroplasticity. And maybe, for
So,
the sake of the
mhm.
conversation, we should define what is neuroplasticity. So how would you define it?
So neuroplasticity is the affect that learning or changing or even a knock on the head has to changing the brain. So the brain is plastic. A lot of people used to believe that the brain was static after childhood, but it's plastic. So neuroplasticity is what happens during the learning or the trauma to the brain.
Right? It's good. So it's pliable. It changes all
Correct.
the time. We can impact it, and we can impact it faster or slower, and
Hmm.
then there will be cause because of the effect that it will have.
Exactly.
Back to the my first question. So, is it
Mhm.
one thing or two things that you do specifically to help your clients and yourself, to get unstuck?
So there are innumerable things, and most of them, if all of them, you have either heard, you apply with your clients and yourself, and that goes from healthy sleep to regular exercise to having an affect of emotional intelligence to having social hygiene to having intelligent, limited nutrition. So, this is all the stuff that is prescribed by practitioners in general. And I, of course, reference those and ensure clients all build that that tapestry of intelligent behavior change. One of the things that I think makes the most difference, if not all the difference, is about helping clients build a spiritual sense of awe, AWE. I find that it makes a huge difference.
And anything in particular there that or is it anything can go? Just the sense of that there's something beyond ourselves, or how would you define that AWE?
I don't think it is anything beyond and mystical and, you know, omnipotent. I don't have any myth around that belief. I don't think we are being watched by some alien or some omnipotent energy or God. I don't think that. But I do think it's very important to have spiritual experience. And that can have a metaphysical out of body experience. It can have a sense of well being or connection with the universe as the ego shrinks down and the sense of connection through meditation or psychedelics or or prayer. I mean, there's many roads to Mecca, and and the spiritual experience is what makes all the difference for sure.
Yeah, I would agree with you there. Let's switch the topic for a moment because I think on the other end of being stuck is inspiration. So, what inspires you? Is there somebody that inspires you? How do you inspire yourself?
Sure, inspiration comes in many forms, like being knocked on the head by an apple, like Isaac Newton, when you have an epiphany, or when you find you've found the theory of everything, when you have these insights during your epileptic seizures. But the easiest way to copy and paste this is to find a sense of awe, AWE. And the easiest way to do that is to be in nature. The other day we were walking, we were in Croatia and we were walking along a road and just, whatever, we were just going for a walk. And I had this feeling out the corner of my eye, and I looked behind me, and Barbara, the whole sky, literally the whole sky, was this massive Technicolor rainbow.
Wow.
It was impossibly big. Like the whole sky was a rainbow. It was just the most impossible experience. And we just stood there, just without words, just appreciating, lost in the moment of that awesome experience and finding those spiritual moments in nature. It's kind of easy. You can go for a swim in the ocean or you can go for a walk in the woods or whatever you do. I mean, there's easy ways where you can ensure that kind of thing is going to happen regularly. So that's a very clever way to ensure that you have spiritual experiences on demand. And obviously, you don't need to go to nature. You can go to church, you can go meditate, you can go bang on the bongo drums with a bunch of dope smoking friends. I mean, there's many ways you can have a heightened sense of well-being, socially, environmentally, and of course spiritually, Barbara.
Yeah, it's true. You're right. So you had it when you're in nature. Is there a person also that inspires you?
Yeah, no, there's thousands of people that inspire me. I mean, I suppose the easiest thing today, of course, I have relationships and they are inspirational. But the human condition itself is kind of inspirational. Just being on this little rock spinning around the sun is it's kind of an inspirational experience. How on earth did all this happen? It's pretty awesome to think that all these miracles fell into place and here we are. So yeah, the the fact that humans are around is pretty bizarre and pretty inspirational.
It is. I was with a doctor today, and her husband fell in Lebanon 6 weeks ago. And
Wow.
yeah, and they have a couple of kids. And just the conversation that I was having with her, I was inspired the way she's dealing with it, and I can't imagine, can't imagine. And,
Mm.
for the listeners who don't know, I live in Israel, and the loss and tragedy all around, and the way people are dealing with it is, can be very inspiring at times because it's
Mm.
tremendous. So,
Often crisis or catastrophe inspires spiritual, let's call it enlightenment,
yeah,
because you got nothing else you can do. You need to get your shit together, otherwise you're gonna just jump off a cliff or something, or gonna die. And until we solve the problem of death, which we probably will do in the next generation, we have to deal with stuff. We have to process and come to terms with the condition of being a you know a species, an animal, a person that's going to end up dead and decay one day.
one day, that's the contract. We come, we go.
Well,
And
I don't think it's a contract forever. I think there's
no,
going to be a change in that. I don't know if we'll make it in our life. I mean, some people like Ray Kurzweil and other inventors believe that we'll be able to download our memories and upload them into a silicon version of ourselves. So
mhm.
how likely that will happen?
I,
I think there's about a 50-50 chance it'll happen if you've got an AI body that is robust and effective in the same way your body is. Would you choose not to upload
yeah,
it? Would you rather just die? I'd rather give it a go. What's worse than being dead? Well, not much. Dead is pretty the worst thing that can happen to you. There's a great quote by Woody Allen.
okay.
Let me just try to remember it. It's such a good quote. He said, "I'd like to die by being remembered through my work, but I'd prefer to not die at all."
Oh wow. Well, that's Woody Allen. He's certainly prolific, and he did great many, 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 many things. I think it depends. I think some people will say yes, I want to go on, and some people are like, oh, I'm ready to go. So and
Exactly.
we'll have
We haven't got that choice yet, but
that.
who's to know? Who's to know?
You know.
Science fiction is happening tomorrow, so it's stuff that's going to happen to us very soon.
How much does the subconscious and unconscious play into your work and your day to day in affecting change?
So the first question is, what is the difference?
Uh-huh.
And the second question is pretty much everything. You think you're driving this engine, but you're a little mouse sitting on the trunk of an elephant who's your subconscious, who is roaming around the jungle of your mind. So you don't really have much. You have a little bit of influence, but it's very limited, Barbara. Very, very limited.
What is the difference between the sub and the unconscious? How would you define it?
The spelling, I think that's the key thing.
Really?
Yeah, I know it's me. I'm very linguistic like that, Barbara.
Well, I always say, here's the differentiation I make. I say the subconscious is like a beach ball. You push it down, but if you release the pressure, it will come back up. The unconscious is really stuff that's deep down that it's hard to get to. It's the more unpleasant uh, memory programming that we like to keep hidden down there. But that's my definition of the way that I separate the two.
Yeah.
So, how can people find you? What do you want to leave our viewers with? I know you have a book. How can we know more about it? We're going to put it in the show notes, but do you want to tell us something about that?
I don't know. It's an interesting question. I'm feeling a bit of performance anxiety, in trying to answer and leave a pearl of wisdom. I don't think I have anything specific, Barbara. I don't know.
Well, but we want to talk a little bit about the NPN Hub. If people are interested, if they're
Sure.
practitioners.
I mean, the NPN Hub is a community of practitioners and learners interested in applied neuroscience, and many of them have completed the credential to be a neuroplastician, which is a practitioner who is skilled in guiding their clients through improving neuroplasticity. So NPN is short for neuroplastician because nobody can spell that word. So the idea is to build a community of practitioners and learners that are interested in the science on how the brain learns and grows and recovers from trauma.
Hmm. And you don't have to be a coach. I think you can be a practitioner in many
Mhm.
different fields.
Exactly.
Yeah, we'll
Yeah, I
put
mean,
in.
it's not a training, it's a credential. So you have to be able to present your previous training and your current expertise. And if you don't have either one of those, you're going to struggle to be credentialed by the Institute of Organizational Neuroscience, who governs the discipline, in general.
Awesome. And like I said, we'll have it in the show notes. People can check it out and learn more about it and get in contact. Before we end, any last words that you want to share with us? Anything that.
I don't think I have anything specific, but I really enjoy the dialogue with people who are interested in the science. So those people who are curious to learn more about how the science can be applied to spiritual and interpersonal and finding a sense of awe in their lives, I'm happy for those conversations. So that would be great. I'm very social like that.
Awesome. Well, I want to thank you for your time, for coming on today, sharing your story with us, and talking about neuroplasticity. I appreciate it and wish you well.
Thank you so much, Bob. It's great to see you again, and hopefully, I'll see you in the NPN Hub at one of our events in the near future. It's great to
I hope
chat.
so too. Take care. Bye bye.
Thanks so much. Bye bye.
Hi, and here are the takeaways from my podcast with Dr. Justin Kennedy. Number one, cultivate a sense of awe, AWE, in your life, particularly through experiences in nature. This can provide spiritual experiences and inspiration on demand. Number two, recognize that neuroplasticity allows your brain to change throughout life. You can actively shape your brain through learning experiences and practices. Number three, build resilience by developing the ability to notice what you don't usually notice. This helps you make more intelligent choices and move from surviving to thriving. Number four, don't overcomplicate emotional wellness. Focus on the basics like healthy sleep, regular exercise, good nutrition, emotional intelligence, and social hygiene as foundational practices for overall well being. And number five, develop a spiritual practice to increase your ability to deal with being stuck. This could be a formal practice like meditation or prayer, or simply spending time in nature to connect with something larger than yourself. And as always, have a great week and take care of yourself. See you next time. All right, action takers, as we wrap up today's episode, I want you to know that I believe in you. Each of you has the power to create positive change in your life, no matter where you're starting from. Remember, it's okay to take small steps. Every bit of progress counts. And the sooner you can take action, the better, because your saboteur loves to create doubt and confusion. If you enjoyed what you heard today, you know what I'll ask of you. Like, subscribe, leave Apple and Spotify ratings and reviews, tell a friend, and generally do all the things you would do to support a podcast you love. Your support helps this message reach more people who might need to hear it, especially right now. I'll be back in 2 weeks with another episode to support you on your journey. Until then, this is Dr. Barbara reminding you that you're worthy of an extraordinary life. Be kind to yourself as you work towards your goals, and remember, I am rooting for you every step of the way.